was listening on the radio this morning that apparently today is the day where whatever percentage of people give up on their New Year's resolution. Yeah. So our
Didn't make one.
our whatever our intentions at the start of the year, it could be eat healthy, exercise, whatever it is. And of all the months of the year, when it comes to trying to stay motivated, January is hard work. It's still very cold weather. The days are still quite short, but yet we can expect the same things of ourselves in terms, whether it's a work schedule or family schedule or all of that kind of stuff that we would at any other time of the year. And then we add in the extra of I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week or whatever it is. We're adding in the extras, and sometimes we can feel bad when we need to make an adjustment in that. So when we start finding out, oh, this isn't quite working as I hoped it would, all how we dream it to be. Yes, I will be in the gym at 6 a.m. all these mornings. I've never been in the gym at 6 a.m. morning, but I know people who do, yeah? And I still don't know how to do it. We can feel really hard on ourselves when we need to make an adjustment in something so that it works for us. And there's a really clear distinction between the mindset of successful people and the mindset of not so successful people. And it's exactly that piece. If you ask, top CEOs or, high-level people like that, how they deal with failure, so many of them will answer that they don't really consider anything to be a failure. It might be an obstacle, it might be a delay, but it's always viewed as a kind of opportunity to make an adjustment in a way. It's not actually a failure, it's just that, okay, that didn't quite work, and we need to make an adjustment, we need to change something. And it can feel like we can be very hard on ourselves in not allowing that. So, not so long ago, and still to a little bit, I have quite strong perfectionist tendencies, yeah? And most of this I enjoy. If I'm chopping vegetables, I will chop them all the same. They will be quite perfectly done, yeah? And I enjoy this. There's something that's very therapeutic about how this random chopping of things can do, yeah? Orderly, everything the same size, I get great pleasure from this. But I admire being able to do it in that sort of random way. I just don't have that file in my brain that allows me to do it. So when it came to my healing path or personal development path, I was trying to apply a similar mindset. The same mindset was operating. And it was the same mindset that made it really difficult for me to be able to handle mistakes. And what I found out was happening was that it was paralyzing me from really taking action, because I would try and have it worked out to the microscopic degree before taking a step, because I needed to be sure it would be successful first. And it took me a very long time to accept that that was not such a good way to approach things. It was definitely not such a good way to approach my healing or my personal growth, because it was so flowy and all over the place. It needed flexibility to be able to go as it needed. And yet there was something in me that perfectionist side that wanted it all worked out step by step before I take step one. So when I began to learn how to make adjustments, something about that word really, really helped. Change I didn't like. I spent my whole life trying to achieve, whether it was my work life or my personal life, to be in such a way that I was happy with everything in it and then just cruise on from there. And my 20-something-year-old self didn't know that that was unrealistic. So I worked really hard to try and achieve my life in a certain way. And because of that, any kind of change that came up. So I was working in an organization at the time that was very dynamic. As soon as a new need arose, they would be like, okay, what do we need to do here? And they would set up a new program, they would change staff teams around, and they could do this on a sixpence, literally from Monday to Friday. This would be from start to finish done, and you're in a new project. And this, it was terribly unsettling at the time, but it really helped me to be able to roll with change because it was happening. It helped me to really go through the discomfort of that. So when it came to my healing path and healing journey, and I began finding areas in myself that were unfamiliar to me, or they had been not visited in such a long time. There was areas of emotion or areas of trauma that I hadn't looked at or I hadn't had access to maybe since the original thing happened. So when these things started to come up, I really had no idea how to handle this. And so my instinct was to try and do this from my perfectionist approach, which was, okay, so here's what's coming up, and what do you know about this? And what can we try and determine about how this will feel, or how long this is going to take to heal, or what books I might need to read, or what healers I might need to visit, or something like that, who I might need to speak to. And I would try and work out a strategy for how to heal this thing before I started. And of course it was completely disabling. It would just keep me stuck in that point, because I never knew what was going to be enough. I was trying to work out, okay, how much grief is in there, or how much anger is in there really. You know, this was when I actually accepted I had anger in there. That took a long time in itself. So that approach, trying to be strategic about it like that, kept me stuck at a point where I wasn't quite starting. And what it really boiled down to was that I didn't know what to do. I was trying to work it out purely because I didn't know what to do. And when I didn't know what to do, I didn't know what else to do. And so I was stuck. And wrapped up in that was this terrible fear of making it worse, or getting it wrong, or making a terrible mistake. And so I was trying to hold back this kind of wall of emotion, or this sea of emotion, because I didn't know what the consequence would be if I started to let this come up. If I started to let this be felt. That was terrifying. So the only option was to try and control it. That seemed the most reasonable and rational approach.